You're listening to NES Chat, brought to you by NES Faircroft, International Workforce Solutions Specialist.
Hello and welcome back to NES Chat with me, Lauren. Today I'm joined by my colleague Wayne Guidry, manager based in Louisiana, to discuss what chemical engineers across the US need to know as the sector recovers post-COVID-19. We'll be discussing how the pandemic has impacted hiring trends, what the hot jobs are, and what the future looks like for candidates looking to advance their career in chemicals. Wayne has over 17 years industry experience and is currently specialising in hiring API, CWI inspectors, project control professionals, E&I professionals and construction managers. Hi Wayne and welcome to NES Chat. Thanks for joining me today.
Good, pleasure being here.
So today I want to talk to you a little bit about how the chemicals industry in the US has adapted to COVID, how it's changed over the last 12 months, and what engineers can expect their future in chemicals to look like over, the next few months, next few years. So first of all, let's start with how the industry has changed over the last 12 months. What impact has the pandemic had?
Let's face it, the pandemic has challenged all people and industries alike, some more than others. Our chemical clients have been challenged mostly with the question of how do they get work done safely within the CDC guidelines while showing care for their employees and contractors alike. The oil and gas chemical sectors are interconnected in many cases due to the use of hydrocarbons. This is leading many of our chemical clients to re-examine their assets and apply pressure for diversifying in the use of hydrocarbons further. We've seen in the last 12 months, many clients have deferred major capital, research, and turnaround projects as the industry relies heavily on people to work safely in controlled environments. In these cases where there was active construction we had going on, my clients had to scale back the efforts in the field and work with smaller crews, causing the schedule to be pushed out several months. In other cases, clients deferred, certain R&D efforts on specialty products as these budgets were constrained in 2020 due to the unknowns of the pandemic. The pandemic also put strains on companies' technology as many of our contractors didn't have the capabilities in a place to telework and track productivity. So what we did was develop, different cases where we work with the client to ensure they had good, adequate working space that were ergonomically safe, and develop different reporting tools for our contractors to report the daily output. So, that's how it's been the last 12 months prior to kind of restart going on right now.
Yeah, so lots of changes there. And how would you say the pandemic has impacted hiring trends and the job market?
The pandemic has impacted the job market and hiring trends due to the loss of capital improvement that many clients wanted to put on in their 2020 year. Typically, we see hiring for capital and turnaround projects increase from about January to May, keeping workers busy through the summer months. Unfortunately, the hiring was halted, mid-March, and gains that were realized in early January to March were all wiped away in the chemical and refinery industries in the southern Louisiana. This year has been off to a bit of a slow start, but we're starting to see an increase in demand, especially in the chemical sector, with major projects getting announced at local manufacturers.
Okay, so let's look ahead now. What trends should candidates look out for in the chemicals market this year?
I believe that candidates should be on the lookout for sharpening their skill sets and embracing the idea of wearing more hats and getting better with technology. For example, one of my QA coordinators at a local chemical site was getting his OSHA 510 in safety to be considered a competent quality and safety representative on a job site to be used in a dual capacity role when the project was still at low staff levels. In addition, candidates should have used the downtime to sharpen their computer skills, especially our more seasoned workforce. Companies are increasing efforts to digitize processes and working virtually to combat future crises. Having a strong component of a consultant's work based on a computer allows one to stay working virtually in the event of another pandemic. So recently, I also met with a project manager on the chemical site, and he stated that people being hired right now onto the project will have to wear multiple hats and remain flexible in their roles more than ever. Companies will look to keep headcount down, and they will do this through people with increased bandwidth and the use of new technology.
Okay, and would you say that we were always on track to become kind of more flexible and have a lot more digitalization in our processes? Or would you say the pandemic has accelerated these trends?
The pandemic has accelerated these trends, of course, especially for the need of people being, more multi-skilled, and then companies having enhanced computer and technology awareness to be able to do more things away from the actual site itself.
So, right now, then, what would you say the hot jobs are in the chemical sector in the US? Where are clients really looking to hire?
So what we're seeing right now in the chemical sector, some of the hot jobs are chemists and process engineers. It seems like there's always a need for this skill set in the chemical industry. We're getting requests right now for things like environmental chemists, biocide chemists, as chemical companies are looking to try to produce products that will meet future demands. And of course, with the emergence of additional projects coming back into the fold, we're also looking for additional process engineers that will help clients increase capacity for new products. So, looking at process engineers and along with the chemists, those two skill sets definitely are always in need in the chemical sectors.
So I think it's right to say that the pandemic has shifted the focus a little bit in the industry. So, in your experience, would you say we're experiencing any skills gaps right now in the region because of the pandemic?
I wouldn't necessarily say just necessarily because of the pandemic, but we still see a major skills gap when it comes to looking at our chemical and electrical engineering and laboratory roles as well. For engineering, we still need an increased amount of 7 to 12-year experienced chemical electrical engineers to work across various maintenance and capital projects. It's like we have them with 0 to 3 years of experience, and then always like 20-year+ years of experience. We're able to get those, quite heavily. But that 7 to 12 year, which is always the sweet spot, those are the ones that's always in demand. That's always not technically available. In addition, we see the laboratory roles to be in demand as well for technicians, laboratory technicians, and chemists as well. Our clients always look for the space or with people with 2 to 5 years of working experience, working analytical or quality labs. Most entrants that come into the laboratory field find issues because there's a 24/7 work operations, working the shift. So this typically deters some individuals coming into this space. So that's where we see the gaps at.
With that in mind, do you think there's anything we can do to address these skills gaps?
One of the things that I'm looking to do here locally is really about educating some of our youths when it comes in the colleges and in local high schools. Is about educating them about the opportunities that exist in the chemicals, oil and gas fields, and just that environment as a whole. About the various different opportunities that exist in, say, in science and engineering.
Brilliant. That kind of leads really well on to my last question then, looking at the future. So what do you think the future looks like for candidates and engineers looking to advance their career in chemicals?
Well, one thing is for certain, we always need chemicals in our daily lives. From just about everything that we touch has a form of chemical into it. The future for the industry, though, remains pretty bright for the chemicals as it tops over 3 trillion kind of worldwide, right? So, although the chemical production and consumptions are important contributors to global employment, trade, and economic growth, the impacts of the industry, the environment, and human health must also be considered, which is very important right now. They will have more opportunities that will come for individuals that's looking to get into this particular field. Many governments around the world are establishing additional guidelines and legislature to help manage this transportation and storage of hazardous chemicals. There's also various chemical management programs and international conventions and institutions that also exist to properly manage the growing value of chemicals worldwide. Through this management, additional careers will be generated, some that we may not know today.
Well, that's a very exciting prospect, isn't it? What do you think candidates and engineers can do to prepare for that future?
For the most part, they can really partner themselves and get established at one of the local universities and get a part of the curriculum that leads them into these fields. Because there's always, like I said earlier, the need for engineers and then, of course, the laboratory professionals. So that's majoring in biology in some cases, chemistry in cases, and study of those particular components. Whereas one may think that they only can be a teacher or work in a lab at a medical facility. There's the chemical sector that have the same kind of R&D efforts that go into place about making new products that really touch on your lives personally. So it's like they can also do things that impact the world, so it's also, pretty cool to be a part of.
Okay, well, I think that's everything we've got time for today. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your expertise on the chemical sector.
Thank you.
Thank you to Wayne for taking the time to chat with me today. That's all we have time for today, but if you found this episode insightful and you'd like more information on how we support clients and candidates across the energy sector, check out our website, www.nesfurcroft.com. We have tons of sector insights, career advice, and of course, job vacancies, so why not have a browse? Don't forget to follow us on SoundCloud, Spotify, or iTunes to make sure you don't miss an episode of NES Chat. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you for listening to NES Chat. Brought to you by NES Furcroft, International Workforce Solutions Specialist. If you enjoyed this, make sure you look out for the next episode.